Have you ever looked around and felt like the world is moving too fast for you to keep up? Like everything, from technology to traffic to the constant hum of daily life, is racing ahead while you just want a moment to breathe? If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. Many of us reach a point in life, especially as we get older, when we begin to question the pace we've been living at. We start to wonder, what's the rush? And more importantly, what are we rushing toward? You see, for decades we've been taught that life is about chasing more. More money, more things, more goals, more achievements. And for a long time, maybe that felt right. We had responsibilities, families to raise, careers to build. There wasn't always time to pause or reflect. But now, in this season of life, the question shifts. Now, it's not about how fast we go or how much we accumulate. It's about how we feel, how deeply we connect, and how present we are for the moments that truly matter. That's where the idea of the slow life comes in. And no, it's not about being lazy or doing nothing all day. It's about living with intention, about choosing quality over quantity, peace over pressure, and meaning over mindless motion. It's about giving ourselves permission to slow down, step back, and ask, what really brings me joy? What really matters at this stage of life? You may be wondering, what does that look like in practice? Well, it can be as simple as sitting quietly with a cup of tea in the morning, listening to the birds instead of turning on the news right away. It might mean spending an afternoon in the garden, your hands in the soil, instead of rushing through a list of errands. It could be making time to talk, really talk, with a friend or family member, without glancing at a clock or a screen. These moments might seem small, but they're the ones that stay with us. They're the ones that bring a sense of calm, of contentment, of real connection. There's something deeply healing about letting go of the need to always be productive. We've spent so much of our lives equating busyness with worthiness. But now, we have the wisdom to know that being busy doesn't always mean being fulfilled. In fact, slowing down can open the door to a kind of fulfillment that we may have been too busy to notice before. Let me share something personal. Not long ago, I made the decision to downsize. I sold my big house, the one that once made sense for a growing family, and moved into a smaller space. Something cozy, easier to care for. And I'll be honest, at first, the idea was terrifying. I looked around at all the things I'd collected over the years, furniture, boxes, gadgets I hadn't used in ages, and I felt overwhelmed. How could I possibly let it all go? But as I started sorting through those things, something surprising happened. I began to feel lighter. Each item I donated, sold, or gave away wasn't a loss. It was a release. I realized how much energy I had been spending, not just maintaining my possessions, but holding on to them emotionally. That slow process of letting go was the beginning of something beautiful. It cleared space, not just in my home, but in my heart and mind too. That's the power of slow living. It invites us to clear the clutter, not just the physical clutter, but the mental and emotional clutter too. It encourages us to live with less, but feel more. To do fewer things, but with deeper purpose. And for many of us, especially after 60, this is exactly what we need. You might be thinking, but I'm not ready to sell my house and move on to a boat. And that's perfectly okay. Slow living doesn't have to be dramatic. It can begin in small ways, wherever you are. Maybe it's simplifying your daily routine so you're not always rushing. Maybe it's saying no to things that drain your energy and yes to the things that fill your spirit. Maybe it's cooking meals at home, slowly, mindfully, instead of grabbing takeout on the go. Every slow choice is a gift you give yourself. It's also worth saying this. Embracing the slow life is not always easy. We live in a world that worships speed. Fast food, fast internet, fast results. We're constantly told to hustle, to keep up, to do more and be more. Choosing to slow down can feel like swimming against the current. People might not understand. They might even question your choices. But here's what I've learned. The peace that comes from living slowly is worth far more than the approval of others. There's a deep strength in choosing what's right for you, even if it goes against what's trendy or popular. And for many of us, slowing down isn't just a preference, it's a necessity. Our bodies may not move as fast as they used to. Our minds may crave quiet over noise. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. It's your inner self saying, it's time for something different now. And what you gain from that shift is extraordinary. More time to be present. More energy for the things that really matter. More appreciation for the simple pleasures, a warm breeze, a shared laugh, a well-earned nap. These aren't small things. These are life itself. And when you slow down, you begin to see just how rich and beautiful these moments really are. Sometimes people ask me, won't I get bored if I slow down? And I smile, because I used to wonder the same thing. But here's the truth. When you stop racing through life, boredom is often replaced by wonder. Suddenly, you start noticing things again. The way the light filters through the curtains in the morning, the scent of fresh herbs in the garden, the soft rhythm of your own breath when you're not rushing. These things were always there. We just needed to slow down enough to see them. This journey of slowing down doesn't happen overnight. It's not a switch you flip. It's a practice, a way of being. And like any practice, it starts with small steps. Maybe today you take 5 minutes to sit quietly and do nothing. Just breathe. Maybe tomorrow, you take a short walk with no phone, no music, just you and the world around you. And the day after that, maybe you cook a meal slowly, mindfully, with gratitude for each ingredient. These tiny moments are how the slow life begins. You don't need to change everything all at once. And you don't need permission from anyone to start. All you need is a willingness to listen to what your body, your heart, and your spirit have been trying to tell you for a long time, that it's okay to stop chasing, to start savoring, and to live at a pace that feels right for you. Because the truth is, this chapter of life, your 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond, is not a time of decline. It's a time of clarity, of refinement, of knowing who you are and what matters most. And what matters isn't how fast you go. It's how deeply you live. One of the beautiful things about choosing a slower life is how it shifts your perspective. Suddenly, you begin to realize how much time and energy you once spent chasing things you didn't actually need. The new phone, the flashy car, the wardrobe full of clothes that were rarely worn. For years, many of us believed that having more would make us feel more secure, more successful, maybe even more loved. But now, with the benefit of time and experience, we start to see things differently. We begin to understand that real wealth isn't stored in bank accounts or closets. It's found in peace of mind, good health, meaningful connections, and the freedom to spend your days the way you choose. That shift is subtle at first. But once it begins, it's hard to ignore. You'll find yourself craving quiet mornings. You'll notice how good it feels not to be in a hurry. And you'll start to let go of the idea that you have to prove anything to anyone. There's something powerful about no longer needing to keep up with the crowd. It gives you the space to start asking different questions, like, what do I want my day to feel like? What brings me calm? What fills me up instead of draining me? That's where intentional living comes in. It's the heartbeat of the slow life. You begin choosing how to spend your time, instead of letting the day rush by on autopilot. Maybe you stop waking up to a blaring alarm clock and instead let your body guide you. Maybe you choose to prepare your breakfast slowly, sitting by the window with your favorite mug instead of rushing through the morning routine. These aren't luxuries. They're choices, deliberate ones, that can completely change the tone of your day. And it's not just about how you spend your mornings. It's also about what you keep in your life. That includes your environment. Think about your home for a moment. Does it make you feel calm, or is it cluttered with things that no longer serve a purpose? So many of us hold on to items out of habit or guilt. A drawer full of tangled cords, a cabinet full of unused dishes, clothes that haven't fit in years. These things don't just take up space, they weigh us down in ways we don't always realize. If you're feeling overwhelmed by your surroundings, try starting small. Open just one drawer. Ask yourself, do I really need this? Do I use it, love it, or even remember why I have it? Letting go can be uncomfortable at first, especially when we've been conditioned to keep everything just in case. But with each item you release, you make room for something more important: clarity, lightness, peace. And that same principle applies to your schedule. In retirement or semi-retirement, your calendar may have opened up a bit, but somehow, the days still get full. Social invitations, doctor's appointments, favors, errands. It's easy to fill our time without realizing we've taken on too much. Part of slow living is learning how to protect your time, not with guilt, but with grace. It's perfectly okay to say no. In fact, it's necessary. Because when you say no to things that don't align with your values, you create space for the things that do. Maybe it's spending more time in nature. Maybe it's reconnecting with an old hobby. Maybe it's just allowing yourself to do nothing for a while and realizing that your worth isn't tied to your productivity. You might notice that when you begin slowing down, your relationships start to change too. The people who truly matter, who care about your well-being, your presence, your peace, they'll support your choice to live more simply. But not everyone will understand, and that's okay. Some might question why you're not rushing around like you used to. Some might even say you've checked out or given up. But you haven't. You've simply chosen to prioritize differently. And here's the beautiful part. When you're living more slowly, more mindfully, you actually become more present in your relationships. You listen more deeply. You notice the subtleties in someone's voice, their expression, their energy. You're no longer half distracted checking your phone or thinking about your to-do list. You're there, fully there, for the people you care about. And that's a gift, both to them and to yourself. Another gift that comes with this slower life is rediscovering joy in the little things. The way sunlight dances across the floor in the late afternoon, the smell of freshly brewed coffee, the soft hum of the wind on a quiet day. These moments don't shout. They whisper. But when you're not rushing, you finally have the time to hear them. You might also find yourself drawn to simpler pleasures: gardening, journaling, birdwatching, crafting, listening to music you love. These are not trivial pastimes. They're forms of nourishment. When you give yourself permission to enjoy them without guilt or pressure, you begin to feel rooted again, like you're not constantly chasing life, but actually living it. And in that space, you might start reflecting more, thinking back on the years you've lived, the lessons you've learned, the stories you've gathered, not with regret, but with a quiet kind of gratitude. That reflection is one of the most powerful aspects of slowing down. It helps you recognize how far you've come and how much wisdom you've earned. You see patterns more clearly. You understand your own rhythms. You begin to see the beauty of aging, not as a decline, but as a deepening, a ripening, a return to what really matters. Of course, it's not always easy. The world around us doesn't often reward stillness. It tells us to keep moving, keep buying, keep chasing. But every time you choose stillness, you reclaim your power. You remind yourself that you get to decide how to live. Not advertisements, not trends, not the expectations of others. And yes, there will be days when the temptation returns. Maybe you'll see a flashy sale or a neighbor showing off a new gadget or vacation. That's okay. You're human. But instead of reacting, take a breath. Ask yourself gently, do I really need this? Or am I trying to fill a momentary void? Sometimes the answer surprises you. Sometimes all you really needed was a walk, a warm blanket, a phone call with someone you love. The more you practice this way of living, the more natural it becomes. You stop reaching for things that don't fulfill you and start reaching inward. You stop rushing toward the next thing and start appreciating the one you're in. And over time, that inner stillness becomes a kind of home. A place you can return to again and again, no matter what life brings. Because in the end, the slow life isn't about doing less for the sake of doing less. It's about being more present, more intentional, more connected, more alive in the moment you're living right now. As you continue walking this path of slower, more intentional living, you may find something unexpected rising to the surface, a sense of freedom. Not the kind of freedom that comes from doing whatever you want, whenever you want, but the kind that comes from no longer feeling trapped by the need to keep up, to impress, or to accumulate. It's a quieter freedom, a softer one, but it is powerful, and it stays with you. That freedom also brings something else: clarity. You begin to see, more than ever, what truly nourishes your soul, and what simply fills time or space without meaning. You notice which routines leave you feeling drained and which ones bring you calm. You start to recognize that the most valuable parts of life aren't things you can hold in your hands, but feelings you hold in your heart. There's a deep kind of satisfaction that comes from knowing that you've let go of the noise, both outside and inside. The comparisons, the expectations, the pressure to do more, have more, be more. With that out of the way, you begin to live each day with a different kind of awareness. You see the people in your life more clearly. You hear yourself more clearly. And that clarity guides you toward choices that feel good, not rushed, not forced, just right. And in that stillness, something else often comes forward: gratitude. Real, deep, quiet gratitude. Gratitude for your health, however it is today. Gratitude for the roof over your head, the food on your table, the air in your lungs. Gratitude for the people who call you just to hear your voice or sit with you without needing to talk. Gratitude for the simplicity of being here, alive, in this very moment. This kind of gratitude doesn't require grand experiences. You don't have to travel across the world or accomplish something extraordinary. Often it grows in the smallest of places, in the sound of the wind through trees, the way your hands feel in warm water, the scent of something baking in the oven. These are the moments that the slow life helps us recover, the treasures that were always there, just waiting for us to notice. And as your days take on this new rhythm, you may begin to think about your legacy, not in terms of what you'll leave behind materially, but what kind of energy, wisdom, and values you'll pass on. Will your children, your grandchildren, your friends remember you as someone who was always too busy, always in a rush? Or will they remember you as someone who took time to listen, to laugh, to simply be? This is one of the most beautiful gifts of living slowly, the ability to model a life of depth and authenticity. You don't have to lecture anyone. You don't need to prove a point. Just by being present and grounded in your own choices, you show others, especially the younger generations, that there's another way to live. A way that's not dictated by consumerism or social pressure. A way that values kindness, mindfulness, and appreciation above all else. And that legacy doesn't need to be wrapped up in material things. It's in the memories you create, the stories you tell, the hugs you give. The way your presence makes others feel safe and seen. These are the things that endure. These are the things that matter. You may also begin to notice how your relationship with health changes when you slow down. Not just your physical health, though that can certainly improve, but your emotional and mental well-being as well. When you're not constantly pushing yourself, you start listening more closely to your body. You begin to notice what foods make you feel light and energized, and which ones leave you sluggish. You recognize when you need rest, and you honor that need without guilt. You give yourself space to move your body gently, whether through walking, stretching, or even dancing around your living room when no one's watching. You also give yourself the emotional space to feel, to grieve losses, to celebrate wins, to let old wounds heal. You begin to process what's happened in your life, not with regret, but with compassion. This kind of emotional honesty is one of the most healing things we can offer ourselves, especially as we age. And as that healing deepens, you may find yourself reconnecting with nature in a way you hadn't for years. Not as a place to pass through, but as a place to belong. Sitting under a tree becomes a form of prayer. Tending a small garden becomes an act of love. Watching the birds becomes a source of joy that no screen or shopping trip can match. Nature has a way of teaching us what slow living is all about: patience, presence, and cycles that unfold at their own pace. In this slower pace of life, you may also find time for the things you always meant to do. Maybe you pick up a book you never finished, or start writing down stories from your past. Maybe you paint, or sing, or build something with your hands. Not for profit, not for perfection, just for the pure joy of creating. That joy is still yours. It never left. It was simply waiting for you to slow down enough to feel it again. Of course, living slowly doesn't mean you won't face challenges. Life continues to bring its share of hard days. But when you live slowly, you meet those challenges from a place of steadiness. You're not already exhausted from rushing. You have reserves of patience, clarity, and resilience to draw from. And that makes a difference, not just for you, but for everyone around you. People will notice the change in you. They'll sense the calm in your voice, the lightness in your steps, the ease with which you move through the world. And while they may not say it out loud, they'll feel it. And some may even be inspired to try a slower way of living themselves. You may never know how far your example will ripple out, but you can trust that it will. So, if you're standing at this stage of life, wondering what's next, not in terms of accomplishments, but in how to live, I want to tell you this: you have permission to slow down, to live gently, to let go of what no longer serves you. You've earned this time. You've earned this peace. There's no race anymore. No one left to impress. There's only this moment and the choice to live it fully, not frantically, not fearfully, but fully. And if you ever feel uncertain about whether you're doing it right, remember, there is no perfect slow life. There's only your slow life. The one that fits your values, your pace, your spirit. The one that makes you feel like you've come home to yourself. So take that walk. Make that cup of tea. Say no to what drains you and yes to what lifts you. Choose quiet over chaos. Choose depth over distraction. Choose presence over pressure. You'll be amazed at how rich life becomes when you stop rushing through it. Thank you for spending your time with me today. If this message resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Tell me, what does slow living look like for you? What's one thing you're ready to let go of, and one small joy you're ready to embrace? And if you found this video helpful or comforting in any way, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. It helps the channel grow and lets me continue sharing messages like this with others who may need them. Here's to the gentle, meaningful, beautiful pace of the slow life. And here's to you, living it fully in your own way, one quiet moment at a time.